What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Ango Show Live. It is November 5th, 2025. My name is Ango. Today I'm joined by Billy TKO. We're going to be talking about NXT. We're going to be talking about some wrestling news. We're going to be talking about a variety of things. So obviously, you're going to want to sit down, relax, and enjoy yourself because for the next hour or so, this is going to be a very interesting conversation. I'm not going to lie. I might not even hold back, bro. I might not hold back. You know, people will see in my news video today, there's a very interesting topic surrounding the SmackDown ratings. You know, I understand some people don't like talking about the ratings. I don't think people, you know, the ratings and the ratings talk, of course, is something I never really used to enjoy. But now that the rating system has changed and the calculations of it have changed, it's a little bit more accurate. It's a little bit more in depth. It's led me to really believe that this is a conversation worth having. And it's not just because of the ratings, by the way. And this is kind of how I want to start the stream, Billy, because I'm curious, you know, yesterday, and we've had this conversation a couple times of like, hey, WWE isn't doing enough to keep people glued to the seats. It's not happening in AEW right now. It's not WWE. Like right now, it doesn't seem like any wrestling company is truly producing a storyline that is making you say, hey, you need to sit your ass in your seat and watch this show. And obviously Friday was Halloween, and of course you would expect the viewership to be a little bit lower. But then SmackDown also had its lowest viewership. And like I said, that's going to be part of today's news video. It's already being uploaded as we speak. But then we watched NXT last night, and I feel like it's an interesting situation because you have heard me for years and years and years talk about NXT. And just how it's my like favorite show. I'm very bought into it. I'm very attracted to the way they produce it. And just a lot of things I think NXT is doing right. And then we get last night's episode. And obviously you were doing the watch along live on your channel, Billy TKO. But plug. Yeah, so like you're doing the watch along. You're seeing it firsthand. And obviously I have my own perspective. You have your own perspective. But I feel like NXT is the one show where even if it doesn't have a massive storyline that knocks your socks off, right? It's the one show that is consistently driven that like between the women, the men, the heavyweight, the lower weight, you know, the TNA partnership, the AAA inclusion. What is your take from this? Because I feel like WWE, if they were to include this method that NXT has. For example, like a good example of this would be Joe Hendry going for the AAA mixed tag team titles at Gold Rush, right? Ethan Page and Chelsea Green, like having this experience. Why aren't we getting something like that on the main roster? And I feel like if maybe stuff like that was being done on the main roster, it would also make the main roster shows feel like a little bit of a can't miss it, you know? When you see this stuff happening on NXT, give me your breakdown, your perspective, your viewing experience, because I don't know how much more different it is from mine or what the situation is there.
Well, I think the easy word to use is continuity, right? NXT offers a lot of continuity. They offer, like last night, we seen Kalani Jordan, right? Obviously, Kalani Jordan's been having like this kind of awakening of a heel turn, right? She comes out there and we see her when she hit Jordan Grace with the championship. Well, NXT or WWE, whatever you want to call it, they promoted Kalani Jordan yesterday. They promoted her in a way to where they were going about it as Kalani Jordan is going to now come out to the ring and she's going to talk about her actions. She is now going to answer the question that you guys have had on your mind for the last week. What is that? That's continuity, right? Or if we go back and we look at the Josh Briggs thing, right? We see him with Miles Bourne, Tavion Heights, and then we get the El Grande Americano thing. And the whole story there is just Josh Briggs is this dominant dog, right? Nobody can really beat him, whatever. NXT offers that. They offer it quite often. Now, don't get me wrong. NXT has their flaws. We'd be dumb to say otherwise. They are flawed in some capacity. Now, where I think the main roster could pick up from this and how I feel they could take from NXT, it would be just that, the word continuity. A lot of times, like on SmackDown, for instance, you'll kind of just get like this, what's the word that I want to use here? But they kind of just jam pack a bunch of stuff and they try and throw it at you all at once rather than taking time and pacing. And I think that's another big word, pacing. They're refusing to take that time, and they're trying to get all their stuff in. And it's kind of funny. We talk about like AEW and like their pro wrestling matches, and they want to get all their stuff in. Well, WWE wants to do that with the stories. They want to get it all in, all at once, as soon as possible, which is crazy because beforehand we weren't necessarily talking about that. It feels like there's a lack of continuity, and I think the one thing that they could take from NXT is just that. And I think that's the simplest way to put it.
I think the main roster has continuity. I think maybe the issue with NXT versus the main roster, I'm going to slightly disagree with you. I think they're both really good with continuity. I think sometimes NXT doesn't do this long burn of like slow burn storytelling as much as the main roster.
They're more quick.
Yes, I think maybe that's the way to kind of put it. Because I feel like when you watch NXT, it's like, perfect example of this is Kalani Jordan wasn't necessarily in a situation where she was teasing a heel turn for months and months and months, but now she's heel. And WWE Raw and SmackDown, it's like, no, this is definitely a long-term thing. We're going to tease it. We're going to tease it. We're going to tease it. We're going to add those layers. So there definitely is continuity on both, but I just think NXT might be a little bit better for not making everybody wait. And this was always the one thing that I said, like, I love long-term storytelling. I do. But sometimes you got to be careful. Like, for example, the amount of teases in the last 3 years for Randy Orton to turn heel on Cody, like, and we still haven't gotten that yet. And then it's like, you turn into Saturday night's main event and you're like, oh, maybe it'll happen here, but like, it doesn't happen yet. WWE is playing the long game with that, but why? They don't need to. Maybe they could learn from NXT and say, hey, just shock everybody right now. And when NXT does that, I think it leads to a little bit of a better show. Last night.
Well, yeah, because that offers more excitement and you're going to talk more if that's the case.
Well, yeah,
there's going to be more conversation.
That I definitely would agree with that. And I think one thing that's very interesting too is if you look at NXT last night, like I thought it was a very good show, but I thought it was a very good show because every week it seems to be a very good show. They seem to do a lot of good stuff on a consistent basis. And it's such an easy show to watch. It's not like this mind fuck of like, dude, I got to sit there for 2 hours and it's a drag. And there used to be a time, which I know this is like not the popular opinion with the IWC, but there used to be a time where it was like, dude, I fucking hate watching NXT because it got away from that and it was just good wrestling matches. Now it's like when you see Santino Marella pop up on the screen, and like he doesn't even have to be there, but he's there to offer some sort of announcement or anything, right? It's like you have this thing where it's like, okay, you have your partnership with TNA. You don't know who's going to show up. You don't know what's going to happen there. You have this partnership, or technically you're buying AAA. So you have AAA talent or AAA titles featured on your show. There's just like this weird thing about NXT where it's like, it's so much easier to get invested in what they're doing. And I think the partnerships help with that, but I just think it's in a different boat than the main roster. No matter how many times people want to argue and call it the third brand, it just doesn't feel like it's the third brand. I really feel like NXT is its own thing.
Yeah, it kind of lives on its own.
But it kind of feels like because it's on its own, it's able to differentiate from Raw and SmackDown, where I think Raw and SmackDown is very much the same formulaic wrestling show, where now it kind of becomes like, okay, well, if you watched Raw, obviously SmackDown has a different roster, but if you watched Raw, they're very much produced the same way. So it's like, what makes NXT different, right? A perfect example is like Joe Hendry going for the mixed tag titles. If that were to happen on SmackDown, right, where Chelsea Green and Ethan Page were going up against, I don't know, is Zelina Vega and Aleister Black, right? And it's like, hey, like we're doing the AAA mixed tag team title match. Like, does it make a lot of sense? Does it fit on SmackDown? No, but if you were to include it on SmackDown, it would make SmackDown feel a little bit different, which then I feel like in turn would keep interest.
Now, I want to ask you a question. Let's go based off the idea that WWE did do that. Do you think it would potentially turn some viewers away?
Do I think so? No, because I think people already in WWE, I think the WWE universe has already made it pretty clear that they're interested in the AAA stuff. I think they made it pretty clear that they're interested in TNA. I mean, and to kind of back up my argument for that, it's like, look at Worlds Collide, like NXT, AAA, Worlds Collide. When they do that show, it gets the most viewers ever, and it gets more viewership than a normal NXT episode, right? So that's a big thing. I think when you look at like Omos being there at a AAA event, it's like people are interested in that. So I don't think it hurts. I don't know. I mean, maybe there's something I'm missing and you could tell me, but I feel like in a weird way, dude, it just kind of, people are intrigued by it as long as WWE shows you that it's important.
Yeah, no, I would actually agree with that. I do think it is like an importance thing. I think if WWE says, hey, you need to focus on this, then they're going to put focus into it, which is then in turn going to tell us, okay, well, maybe we should take it a little more serious. So no, I could see that all day. And maybe it doesn't take away, and it's not even necessarily though, like just the AAA thing I'm talking about. Maybe it is more of like just in general, like if WWE were to shake things up in that kind of way, would it turn a viewer away? And I see what you're saying, you know, if they just added importance, and that makes a lot of sense to me now that I sit here and think about it and kind of pull it back in, that as long as WWE is technically putting importance onto things, then it's going to tell the viewer, hey man, take this, it's serious, watch it, enjoy it. So I get it.
Can I ask you a question?
100%. Yeah, please.
What do you think is the biggest reason why NXT is supposed? Why do you think NXT is not on the same level in terms of viewership and fandom as Raw and SmackDown?
It's a lack of importance.
Now, is that because when you say lack of importance, let's go a little bit deeper in there. Is it because they don't have guys like Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre and CM Punk and Jey Uso? Do you think the talent that are on the main roster truly are the draw for the shows?
Yes and no, a little bit. I think yes, because at the end of the day, when you're trying to put and go out and sell tickets, you're normally advertising said individual. Now, I say no because WWE also has told us numerous times that they can do things without said big names, right? Like you've seen, if you go, and we'll just go way far back, but if you go back into like the early 90s when WWE, and I'm talking early 90s, like before the Attitude Era, where everybody had left, gone to WCW, and now it's just like this up and coming talent that nobody's really ever heard of. They see them, but nobody's really ever heard of them. WWE has told us time and time again that they can book things in a way that will make things feel important. You know what I mean? So I don't necessarily know if it's the name value, because I do think name value does offer, but WWE again has told us, hey, you know, we could make NXT this huge thing if we went out and we got a TV deal, a bigger TV deal than the CW, and we slapped it on the USA Network, right? Or and we set it for just we'll throw what night? Maybe like a Friday night after SmackDown. You get another hour of wrestling. WWE could then show that to us and be like, hey, yeah, this is how we view it, and this is important.
You lost me when you said it. You lost me when you said USA Network.
I know the timing. I know the timing.
Not even the timing, but the USA Network thing, because the CW is accessible in more homes because it's an antenna. Like you could just buy an antenna. You don't even. It's free TV. Like.
Well, then again, that just proves the point that I'm trying to make, that WWE can.
If they really wanted to. So that's why I'm saying, that's why I asked about the talent situation, because we have seen Undertaker on NXT. We've seen people show up on NXT, these big names, and it doesn't necessarily take NXT over 1 million viewers. Now, the reason why I bring this up, though, and this was a very good thing, Tolino Channel had dropped a super chat for 200 rupees, and he says, for me, Raw and SmackDown gives me brain fatigue, but I'm tuned in for NXT every week because storylines are goofy but interesting, plus trial and error approach. Waiting for Gold Rush. Now, the main takeaway that I get from this, and I really love this keyword, is trial and error. I do think NXT has the ability to try and fail versus Raw and SmackDown. If Raw and SmackDown tries and fails something, it's detrimental to their product. NXT could kind of get away with it a little bit because they are the lesser viewed product. So maybe that's the reason why I enjoy SmackDown so much, though, is because they're always trying new shit.
You mean NXT? You said SmackDown.
Sorry, NXT. Yeah, thank you. What do they call that? A Freudian slip or something?
Yeah, but it is true. It is true 100%. It's like when you offer, trial and error, you're testing waters, right? And if you're testing waters, you're more likely to you're more likely to succeed rather than fail, and you will fail, obviously, but the risk is worth the reward, I think would be the way to put that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Shout out to Tolino Channel for that super chat. He actually followed up with another one for 100 rupees. He says there's a cult audience for LA Knight, Drew, Sammy, Owens, but the championship is revolving around Cody only. Last Saturday night's main event is an example. Drew had it. So that is interesting because there is a cult audience surrounding LA Knight for sure with Sami Zayn and Jey Uso and LA Knight. NXT doesn't have that. I think NXT tries to have that with Joe Hendry, but they don't have that.
No, and I think that's the thing is they don't. It's true. Let's just call it like it is. For me, NXT, I enjoy NXT. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'm also just like a regular wrestling fan. I'm no different than the next person who watches. You talk about brain fatigue and things of that nature with Raw and SmackDown. That's okay, right? Because that naturally happens. For me, the brain fatigue sometimes comes from NXT because of the lack of importance.
Yeah.
The lack of, hey, we're not going to put emphasis on this maybe the way that you should. And since that is the case, you don't got to worry about watching it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's the problem with NXT, in my personal opinion. And I can only speak for myself on this because I know everybody has a different viewing experience. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when we talk about, like Joe Hendry and stuff like that, yeah, they are trying that. But the truth is that they don't have a person who offers that.
Yeah. I don't think it works with Joe Hendry either. No,
Ricky Saints exists. I think if you put a lot of emphasis on Ricky Saints, he could take that brand and take it to the top if he wanted to.
Yeah, and I mean this with all due respect to Mr. Joe Hendry. He handles himself very professionally and very well with my personal encounters with him. So this is not an issue that I'm seeking. This is not an issue I'm speaking about personally with him. But I think the WWE framing and presentation of Joe Hendry, to me, it's inevitable. He's a WWE superstar, right? He's going to be transitioning to WWE. That's how I see it. And I think WWE is trying this whole thing of like the meme culture where they are telling us Joe Hendry, he randomly pops up and it's the smile and say his name and it appears. Eventually each stick gets boring. And so I think maybe I'm at that point with Joe Hendry where it's like if you keep pushing it down people's throats, it's going to get tiresome. So how do you keep it fresh for the inevitable call up when he goes to the main roster? And
I think that's kind of hard because Joe Hendry, other than this shtick, we haven't seen anything from him.
Anything meaningful.
Correct.
And again, it's not Joe Hendry's fault. This is just
no.
This is the nature of the beast when you look at professional wrestling. And, I see it often on Twitter. I'm not going to lie. Like, I'll be on Twitter and somebody will quote tweet in and be like, oh, Joe Hendry's 15 minutes of fame are up. But it's not that because he's a talented wrestler. I think him personally, he could figure it out regardless of the gimmick. But I think when you look at NXT, when you look at that super chat by Tolino Channel, that cult audience, that it is there for LA Knight and Drew and Sammy and Owens and Cody and all those guys, right? But when you look at NXT, it isn't. The brand itself has the cult audience, not individual wrestlers. And I think maybe with Raw and SmackDown, you can make the argument.
There's individual wrestlers.
Yes. So that's where it gets interesting, though, because if you look at NXT and kind of to piggyback off our conversation from yesterday, dude, I just think wrestling is so skippable.
It is.
It's just so skippable.
Like it is.
This is a massive problem for professional wrestling in AEW. Listen, Tony Khan came out with an announcement for Blood and Guts qualifying matches for tonight, right? And it's not qualifying matches, but it's like the advantages or whatever.
Yes.
And I get what he's doing, and I think it's actually a cool idea. But I just don't care.
Yeah, it's hard to care because Blood and Guts wasn't important until what, like 2 weeks ago?
But I'm not just using AEW as the excuse. I'm saying just in general in wrestling, it's
there's nothing important.
you're giving me a weak episode. You're giving me an episode where you're like, oh, we're going to figure out who has the advantages. But like, why as a viewer do I care about that? And a perfect example of this with NXT was like Kalani Jordan. I was excited to see what she's going to say, what she's going to do, because the evolution of her character. And it was so crazy. By the way, props to Kalani Jordan, because in her promo, she literally said the thing about like Cody using the belt on Drew.
Yeah.
You know, like,
and then, I loved it.
Yeah, like you hear the stuff that she's utilizing, and she's like, but you guys will still sing a song anyways. And I love the promo, and I was like excited for that because I'm like, I'm curious. I want to see what like this character is going to be like. When I see in WWE, we have this whole situation where like, and it's not just WWE, but it's AEW. It's like at the end of the day, everything is skippable. And maybe this could be the burnout period in my life. Let's call it that. Maybe that's what this is. Maybe I'm getting burnt out from professional wrestling. Maybe it's a lot different for somebody like us who, 365 days a year we're consuming this, and it's our jobs and it's our role. And, for me personally, like I'm constantly knowing what's going on with professional wrestling. So maybe this is that burnout period. But I know for a fact if The Rock was showing up, and I know for a fact if we were going back to that WrestleMania 40 build where it was like WWE, and bro, fuck, I hate this, Billy. WWE for a minute was like suspending disbelief or suspending belief. Like they were making you think like, wait, was that supposed to happen?
Correct.
Triple H and The Rock backstage and dropping F-bombs and stuff. Bro, why can't you just do that across the board with other stuff on the show?
I mean, I've said it, dude, and I don't know if I've said it here, or I don't know if it's just been on like a watch along or something like that, but I know I've said it. This is the honest truth. I think, and I stand by this. Like, this is something that I truly feel. It's that Triple H has these, like, it almost feels like he's shackled, right? He's being told that he has like limited things that he can do. Right, because for so many years I watched Triple H be a good booker, right? And then just suddenly, out of nowhere, it stops. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, and maybe it is, and maybe I'm just a dumb idiot on the internet.
I need you to elaborate though, because I don't think the booking is bad.
Maybe it's not so much the book. Maybe it's not so much the book. No, but for me, it kind of is, right? Because I hear you. I hear you. I have a great, I mean, let's just call it like it is, dude. It's maybe you're right. Maybe it's not the booking. Maybe it's a lack of star power.
No, man, it can't be that.
Dude, no, listen. So let's go back and let's revisit that WrestleMania 40 build experience. What was so exciting about that? You just said it. It was the suspense, the disbelief, taking away, right?
Man, you didn't know what was real or fake.
Correct. You didn't know what was real.
They blurred the lines. So why aren't they doing that today? Okay, for example,
do they not have the people that could really tell that story?
How? You write it for them, Billy. If you're Triple H, you get on your phone.
No. Regardless of that fact, you write it for them. A person has to be a good storyteller too. They have to be able to do that. You're telling me right now, if I were to go walk in there and I am just a person who has no acting experience, I have no idea how to draw emotion into a person, that I could go tell that exact same story?
Okay. So let's piggyback off of NXT last night. Let me give you an example, okay? Let me pull this up. I'm going to see if I could drag it in here. Okay. Perfect example of this, and I can't actually drag it into Meld. I don't know why. That's kind of weird, but perfect example. We saw a Grande Americano backstage with the Americano Juniors, like the
Avo and Ryo.
Yeah. So we see them, right?
Yeah.
It's a locker room shoot, right? You're telling me you can't do an angle, and let's piggyback off the roster for a second. I want to use somebody who's not necessarily active. So let me look at the roster, for example.
Okay.
Let me give you an example of what I'm trying to do. NXT. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Perfect example would be I mean, most of these guys are getting used. Okay, so let's do Malik Blade. Let's do Malik Blade and let's do Kale Dixon. Kale Dixon's the Chase University guy. Malik Blade, pretty much non-existent since Idris Enofi's gone. Right?
Correct. Yep.
Imagine you're watching El Grande Americano doing this backstage segment, and in the locker room, while he's cutting his promo, you have Malik Blade. The camera just shockingly pans to the side, and oh my God, there's chaos. There's a brawl outside between two guys who aren't used on NXT television or consistently used in big programs, right? Malik Blade and Kale Dixon are the examples I'm using. They're not star power. But if you're watching an episode of NXT and El Grande Americano's backstage cutting this promo and they're talking, they're doing this thing, he's the WWE Speed Champion, he concludes his promo, and instead of going to the commentary desk or anything else that's happening backstage, the camera just shockingly panics and you start seeing two guys who aren't heavily utilized brawling. Right? You don't even have security break it up. You just have them brawling whatever, and NXT just says, hey, we'll be right back after this break. They come back and say, hey, two NXT superstars got in a backstage brawl. Like, we're investigating this. My point that I'm making is it might sound silly to the audience listening to this, but that's what WWE was like essentially doing on their TV shows, where it was like, wait, was that supposed to happen? Or what's going on? What is this building? What is this for? What's the reason? Whatever. The point that I'm making is it's like nice to have a little bit of random chaos that just randomly happens that you didn't expect, and it's completely random. And you could do that with anybody. It's just how you position it.
WWE hasn't drawn any emotion. They haven't. They haven't taken human emotion. And that's what Cody and The Rock did. They used human emotion, right? Like, I don't know necessarily how to describe it. Probably not the person too.
Yeah.
But overall, when you grab at somebody's like heartstrings, for instance, when you pull at those, it invests somebody. And I'll use an example. It's the reason why I enjoy Stranger Things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The TV show. Because they pull at my heartstrings.
Yeah.
WWE has told us time and time again that they're not a wrestling company. They're an entertainment company. Right? Well, I also look at Stranger Things as entertainment. So I understand that Stranger Things doesn't film, all the time, and they're not there, and they have a much easier story to tell in the sense of you have time to do it. WWE doesn't always do that, and they're not going to get everything right.
Yeah.
But there should be no reason, and I mean this quite literally, that we don't at least have one thing that we can pinpoint and look at and be like, okay, yeah, that's pulling at my heartstrings. The only thing right now that truly I know is going to pull at my heartstrings in the WWE is John Cena in his retirement. That is the only thing. And they're not even telling the story. It's just that one of my favorite wrestlers is retiring.
Yeah. So
that is it.
I want to shout out Kitty Michael because this was a perfect example. Kevin and Cody. The Kevin Owens heel turn wasn't even on TV.
Yeah, it happened on the internet.
Like, you're telling me you can't do more of this kind of stuff across all three shows? And this is the company, by the way, who was doing... WWE was taking those risks and it was paying off. So you're telling me you can't... Listen, Friday Night SmackDown's going to come back Friday. They're probably going to have a viewership increase, right? It's not Halloween. It's not the World Series.
Yeah, it was Halloween.
Whatever.
Yep.
But, like, you want to get people hooked in. You got Ilya Dragunov doing this thing with Aleister Black last week, for the Open Challenge or whatever. Or that was 2 weeks ago or whatever the fuck it was. And you do the Open Challenge thing, right? Now, imagine for some reason you're watching SmackDown this weekend and somebody takes out Ilya Dragunov. Oh, he can't do an open challenge this week. Somebody's masked by the tour bus, waiting for him to get out of the bus, takes him out. You don't know who it is, who's the mystery attacker. And people get mad about this wrestling trope where it's like, oh, it's a mystery attacker thing. But like, start up a storyline where it's like cell phone footage of, Ilya Dragunov just got his ass beat in the fucking parking lot. What happened? I don't know. We're trying to figure it out. Just random shit like that. Kevin and Cody was the perfect example. Do more stuff like that.
So I'm going to ask you a question now. Yeah. Why did that stop? Why did that stuff stop?
That's the thing I don't know, Billy. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
So that's where I'm trying to tell you. I think it's a shackled situation. Why would Triple H just randomly stop doing stuff like that?
I don't know. I can't figure it out. I don't know why TKO would say no. That's why business was booming in the first place.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, they don't understand. They don't understand. To them, it just looks a certain way.
Okay, but here's the thing.
I know people don't want to believe like, oh, Triple H is shackled. No, he might be.
Okay, so Trevon Womack says in the chat because kayfabe is dead. But that's not fair because kayfabe has been dead since the entirety of pro wrestling, bro. People are not stupid. We don't watch this stuff because we think it's real. Nobody here is watching the show thinking it's real. Nobody thinks that kayfabe is real. Everybody knows that wrestling is fake. The only thing, and I hate using that word fake, but the reality is it's scripted entertainment. Everybody knows this. WWE is telling it to you. They are telling you it's scripted entertainment. They go on ESPN, they go on Netflix, and they tell you it's scripted. They tell you it's not real. They tell you it's predetermined. I know wrestlers don't like the fake word, but the truth is it's fake. And the reality is this. That's what makes it so much better because you blurred the fucking lines. You told us it's fake. So now you're doing something where you're like, wait, hold on. Was it actually
I don't know if it's fake or not.
Yes. That was, bro, I'm telling you right now, one of the coolest things about the Roman and Cody and The Rock was the fact that they really had me, a grown-ass man, convinced like, okay, did The Rock really go overtime? Obviously we know they don't have beef. We know that. But like, did he really go overtime? Is he really coming in and being this dickhead to Triple H and everybody? The Cody and Kevin Owens thing was like, obviously we know it's not real, but you have to wonder, it's like, okay, you're making it look like it's real.
Can I mention just really fast? Do you remember that period in time? There was an episode of SmackDown, one that we all hated. Do you remember that episode
with Cody?
Where The Rock came out?
Yeah.
Yes. You remember that, right?
Yes.
Okay. So let's take a look at that. What happened after that?
It led to the greatest fucking boom ever.
So guess what? They were trying to shackle it there.
And you think that's what's happening right now? Is there basically...
Yes.
Well, whoever's making that decision, if there is somebody truly doing that, if you were right, shame on them. Because like I said, WWE is not bad right now. Like, it's not, to me, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, it's not bad, but it's skippable. It's not must-watch TV. But this is far greater. I don't give a fuck what any person out there says. This is 100% my bottom line when it comes to everything. When it comes to what WWE is doing in 2025, even if it's not as exciting as 2024, from a pure excitement level, it doesn't matter. We went through the Vince McMahon era where things were literally happening on TV where it did not simply make sense. We do not have that issue. We do not have this issue in WWE 2025. This is not a thing with Triple H booking. People are moving the goalposts for every fucking wrestling company, and that's a shame because they're just doing it to have an argument against AEW or WWE or whatever. But if you look at it from the perspective of what Vince McMahon was doing, where people would get DQ, and the DQ finish itself didn't even make sense, and then you're running it back next week and doing the same exact thing, and then there's no continuity, there's no ladder system that people are climbing. Vince McMahon booking was bad. We cannot be revisionist, history revisionists. You know what I mean? We have to be very clear on that. Triple H and HBK, their booking shows that make sense. Like the reason why people are winning, the reason why people are losing, the reason why they have a match, it all makes logical sense, and I 100% enjoy it. But it's missing that exciting factor. So I can watch it, and it's fine for me to watch, but it's also very skippable.
Correct.
I'm not saying
it's simple.
So Vince McMahon produced unwatchable, and then for a while Triple H was producing must-see, and now it's like skippable. And when you look at NXT, It was also a very good episode, but they don't have something screaming my name telling me keep your ass glued to the seat. Now,
Yeah, dude.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, Sharon actually dropped. Sharon Dye. She dropped something over on in my chat. She said, even let TNA wrestlers come to SmackDown and Raw, and that's something that I like. There's certain things that WWE could do to get us excited. If you go back and you look at the things that happened with NXT and the way the invasion angle happened, it lasted what, 2 weeks? Is that right?
Yeah.
Imagine if they did that on the main roster, and they told a story for like a month and a half, 2 months. And it led to something big. What are we doing that's wrong? That is the biggest question through all of this. What is wrong?
So I think
I'm saying the shackle. I'm saying whatever. What is wrong?
So I think the problem, if you put TNA talent on SmackDown, it has to make sense, or on Raw, right? It would have to make sense from like a legitimate perspective. So a perfect example of this, a couple of weeks ago, when Javon Evans versus Sami Zayn on SmackDown. Like, what a nice surprise, right? And it was a phenomenal match, right? When that happened and Javon Evans was on SmackDown, that was a genuine fun moment, right? You could do Ilya Dragunov doing an open challenge, and imagine this. Imagine, and we're playing hypothetical. We're making up something here.
Right.
But imagine who's like a fun TNA wrestler right now that I can use? TNA, let's go on their roster. I don't want somebody brushed up in a storyline though, because I'm trying to play hypothetical. So like, I don't want to say Mike Santana. I want somebody heavy hitting. Okay, Steve Macklin. Even though, technically he's in stories.
Like
but,
Steve Macklin.
So let's say Steve Macklin. I like this idea of Steve Macklin for a reason. Steve Macklin, right now, currently as it stands, obviously he's involved on TNA television. He's not involved in a TNA storyline. Now imagine there was a storyline in which an NXT guy was being groomed to go to the main roster, right? And Steve Macklin was to be in a feud with this NXT person. For the sake of the conversation, we're gonna say Joe Hendry, because Joe Hendry has been on the main roster before, so he's known by the WWE universe. So let's say Joe Hendry was in this thing where, like, hypothetically speaking, he was on NXT television, and last night on NXT to close out the show, he says he gets a phone call from Nick Aldis, and he says, "Hey, do you want to come out Friday? I want to invite you to SmackDown Friday." Joe Hendry answers the call. That's what you get, the copyright ticker. You're like, oh my God, Joe Hendry's going to be on SmackDown, right? This is all hypothetical. I'm not saying it's great booking, but I'm just for hypothetical purposes.
Hypothetical. Yep.
So imagine Friday Night SmackDown comes out, and then you have Ilya Dragunov doing his open challenge. Joe Hendry comes out. You get the big pop. You get the big pop, and the thing, he gets taken out. Who he gets taken out by? A TNA guy. TNA guy.
Yep.
I'm not saying it's great stuff, but what I'm trying to say is if it's somebody that people know, and maybe Steve Macklin wouldn't be the perfect example here, but if Steve Macklin were like a TNA guy and he opened up the match and he goes out there and has a freaking banger with Ilya Dragunov, you just shock the world. Oh, and by the way, there's continuity now because on NXT, Joe Hendry is going to call out Steve Macklin. And now you have a feud for NXT. Correct. Like, chat, are you guys understanding what I'm saying? Like, the idea, I'm not saying this particular storyline should happen, but what I'm saying is, like, the idea of having like a storyline in which TNA answers the open challenge. I think it works, but then it's a story that you continue telling on NXT
later down the line.
Yes.
Correct.
I'm using Steve Macklin as an example. I mean, it could be Moose. It could be, bro, you could do AJ Francis, like AJ Francis obviously being a SmackDown guy before, it's like, I'm just throwing out examples, but I think there's something there where it's like, dude, you could get TNA on the main roster if you wanted to, and you could do it in a way that benefits NXT, because if you watch NXT and you're watching SmackDown and you're like, oh, wait, a TNA guy just hit an NXT guy, answered the challenge, lost, not a big deal. Well, now I want to see what the hell happens between him and the NXT guy.
Correct.
And I'm using NXT and TNA, but obviously AAA applies. So, for example, you can do and you have to look at AAA and you have to look at it from the perspective of like, okay, who's popular people there and who's very talented. So then for me, maybe like Vikingo, where it's like, maybe you replace Steve Macklin with Vikingo, who, by the way, just turned heel. And now you have a storyline where El Grande Americano, who by the way is on NXT now, he's on all the shows, but he's WWE Speed Champion. It's like, well, hey, maybe El Grande Americano comes out, says, well, they're both heels technically, so let's use a baby face. Who would be a good baby face in this particular case? I don't know.
AAA?
Yeah, from AAA.
Dr. Wagner.
Okay, I mean, like, yeah, maybe that works. I don't know. But my point that I'm making is like, okay, you replace Steve Macklin, and then it's like Vikingo comes out.
Right, okay.
Like, what I'm trying to say is like AAA, you can have a AAA talent do it too. You could do a variety of things. And yes, it's my point that I was trying to make with it in its entirety is that it's a risk by putting other talent featured on the show, but it makes it different. It makes it feel different. The feeling of it is like, oh, wait, I did not expect that to happen. So like when you're watching WWE's programming, they're just playing it too safe right now. And I think one issue is that you have a company playing it too safe, but then you also have AEW, for example, who they're just in La La Land.
Yeah, just throwing shit at a wall, hoping it sticks.
And like it's evident, like the interest has declined for years. And so I think one thing maybe people might say, okay, Ango's just starting to not like wrestling anymore. But it's not that I don't like wrestling, because I'm enjoying watching these shows. But my point that I'm analyzing is that they're not doing anything that really shakes up the show and interest level.
Yeah, dude, that's it. That's it. There's nothing more or less to it. And I think anybody, if you've ever watched, I know for me, Breaking Bad was a certain show that I watched that I think we got to like season 4, and it was like a down period. And it was just a long drag through that season.
Yeah.
Right. And what is happening right now is WWE has, truth be told, reached a down period. It was always going to happen under Triple H, whether people wanted to believe it or not.
Yeah.
It was always going to happen. Now, the problem with it is how do we build back from that? How do we get back what it is that we need? And what we need is that heartstring, right? And it looks like on the surface level, it looks like there's people that could tell those amazing stories. Look at Dom Mysterio, for instance. I think Dom Mysterio would be a perfect person to go out and pull at somebody's heartstrings, right? WWE has failed to do that. They're in a down period. That's just where we're at right now.
And what's
how we get back there?
I don't call it a down period, because it's not. Business is still hot. But it's an interesting topic because, for example, you brought up the Edge thing. And it's like, so for example, the things that people get excited about potentially happening are things that are probably unrealistically never going to happen.
Yeah, like Edge.
Like Edge. If Edge randomly showed up on Raw and challenged John Cena for a match, people would get incredibly excited about it. They'd be like, I have to fucking watch. What the hell? An AEW guy just showed up.
Right.
But why can't you do something like that within your own parameters of AAA or NXT?
And I think that's the biggest problem that we're having, brother. That is the biggest problem that we are having right now, is that it takes a certain name to do it instead of just getting somebody to that point. WWE is failing in that sense to get somebody to that point, to really bring in that shock factor.
So maybe this is where things get crazy, and I would love to hear your opinion on this. But I think The Rock is returning for WrestleMania 42.
So do I.
I think WWE is doing the whole poker table thing, and they got Cody and CM Punk and Roman. They're rolling out these vignettes and these packages or whatever. I think The Rock shows up. And honestly, I hate to say it, but WWE kind of needs The Rock back. They need to bring back the final boss character.
Sounds as messed up as it sounds, they do. They need that excitement back.
Right now, what WWE is missing is some exciting storyline that's truly going to make people glued to their seat. We have 3 different stories that you could tell between The Rock, Roman, Rock, and Cody. And I think you could even do something there with The Rock. And honest to God, this is where things get crazy. And people probably don't believe me, but you could even do something with The Rock and Drew McIntyre. And it doesn't need to be The Rock wrestling, but just being involved in some capacity. And this is where I hate TKO, because they have The Rock at their disposal, and I get it, he's this movie star and everything, but at the same time too, your product doesn't have anything that's making people glued to their seats right now. You have this whole bloodline story between Jay and Roman. You can't get The Rock involved for an appearance one time, once a month. He doesn't need to be there every week. But I do think The Rock will be there for WrestleMania 42. The question is, what do they do with him?
Yeah, that's going to be the biggest teller, because here's the thing. We had the build, the 41, and this is, obviously what you said I don't think is a lie, but I do think it's going to heat some people up, because people don't want to see The Rock. They're still mad at the build, the WrestleMania 41. So how could he be trusted again? Well, the truth is as long as we don't do the dumb shit that we just did last year, this year, we'll be fine. I know people will be upset because of dude, it really sniffed out what was supposed to be one of the greatest things ever in WWE. That was another perfect example of being able to pull at heartstrings and just completely flopping it.
Yeah.
Right? John Cena's heel turn was a perfect example of that. As long as WWE can pull off something big like they did at WrestleMania 40, well, they didn't with 41. Okay, let's hope we can fix that trend and get it back for 42. Right? It sucks that The Rock has been a part of all of these, and we're going back to what you say yesterday? Something about like we're going back to these old things that we've seen numerous times, right?
But some of those
right
old
now,
things
that's just where we are.
But we need a conclusion to some of those old things.
Correct. We need a conclusion. We need to finally have those answers. You've been telling a story for years and years and years and years. Let's get the payoff. Let's get it. Obviously, the Cena thing was a mess up. The Cody thing was great. Let's see what they do this year. Like you said, bloodline storyline. We really haven't seen an end of that thing. We haven't.
Well, now we got more layers now with Jay, but it's not like Roman's on TV 24/7.
I feel like Game 5, Mariners versus Tigers, brother. We're in inning 16 almost. But let's get to the point and let's do it.
There's just so much they can do, and I just don't feel like they're doing it. And maybe you're right about the shackles thing, but this is very evident in the WWE programming that you watch that it is missing something. And that's why viewership, the World Series was on Friday. Yeah, it was Halloween. I hate to tell you guys this, but there was a point where a lot of wrestling fans would have said, I don't really fucking care what's going on Friday. I'm watching. And there was a time period, which I can actually tell you descriptively how this all went down. The day that Cody and the Rock, and Cody was giving up his title opportunity and blah, blah, blah. When that happened, me and Billy were live and I was freaking out. I chose not to go out with my friends that night because I really want to see SmackDown that night live and go live after, based on the fact that we had what we had with the show, from Royal Rumble and stuff. So there was a time period where I was like, hey, fuck my friends for a day. I don't care. I'll go hang out with them at another time, but I want to go watch this and do this. And they didn't do that with me. So they haven't done that for me since. Like, now everything is skippable. And it's like, I have a responsibility of producing content and talking about wrestling because it's my job, but I do it because I genuinely love it. What I'm also saying, though, is for as much as I love it, I do feel as if maybe, just maybe, WWE is being a little lazy with the exciting factors that they could do.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So, I think that's the perfect way to end the stream, though. So we'll call it right there. It's 12:53. We'll be back tomorrow, 12 p.m. Make sure you guys check out Billy TKO. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the Ango Show. We'll see you guys next time.